Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. This week, I want to teach you how we can use Barry Harris's beautiful scales of chords to work on our voice leading when playing accompaniment. We'll start out by learning how to use the family of chords contained in two different diminished chords and derive some substitutions for a 2-5 in the key of F major. Then I'll show you a couple of different voice leading pathways that I think give us the smoothest motion between changes. Finally, we'll take a look at using some parallel motion so you can start getting your heads around using the scales of chords as movement rather than just as static substitutions. You guys ready? Let's get started. When we're playing accompaniment, we should always be thinking about using the smoothest voice leading possible. But what does that really mean? Now, put simply, voice leading is a blanket term that we use to describe the movement of either single notes or chords. If we're talking about chords, then we should be imagining each note in the chord as a single voice that can move independently of the others. When we're doing things right, our harmonic choices should move in a small, stepwise way so that the motion from chord to chord sounds smooth and natural. As for different kinds of motion, that's a big topic that we'll save for another lesson. The short version of this discussion is this. If you're making big leaps between chords, you're not playing in a way that emphasizes smooth voice leading. To help us practice playing in a way that does emphasize smooth voice leading, we can turn to Barry Harris's genius scales of chords. We've talked about this concept several times in the past, and we'll do so a lot more in the future. But today, I want to show you guys how I use his ideas as substitutions for a 2-5 in the key of F major. In this first example, I'll play B flat 6 in place of our 2 chord, G minor 7. Then for C7, I'll play the minor 6 on the 5, which is G minor 6, and then make it go back to its diminished parent chord to help lead even more smoothly to the tonic, over which I'll play a major 6 on the 5th, which is C6, to give us the sound of F major 9. Here's what that sounds like. See how I'm always trying to keep my chords as close to one another as possible? That's a key component of practicing using good voice leading. I also touched on using the family of chords by turning that G minor 6 back into a diminished. Now, this idea is super powerful and far-reaching when it comes to playing accompaniment and eventually for improvising in a more polyphonic way. Now, let's take a moment and unpack what the family of chords is. From a top-level perspective, we can see each of the 3 possible diminished chords as having 4 different sets of children. Each diminished chord can give us 4 major 6 chords, 4 minor 6 chords, 4 dominant 7 chords, and 4 dominant 7 flat 5 chords. Let's use C sharp diminished as an example and see where our major and minor 6 chords come from. First, if we lower the notes on the A and the G strings, we end up with a C6. Now this will give us a major 6 chord that has its root in the bass. Next, I can make a major 6 chord with its third in the bass by lowering the D and G string notes down a half step. This results in an A6 in first inversion. If we want a 6 chord in second inversion, we'll need to lower the D and the B string notes by a half step. Doing this from C sharp diminished gives us an F sharp 6. And finally, we can get a 6 chord in third inversion by lowering the A and the B string notes down by a half step. Doing that gives us an E flat 6 with its 6 in the bass. When it comes to minor 6, we'll instead raise each note of the chord by a half step. Now, just like we did with major 6, we'll go through the same process and get 4 different minor 6 chords. Starting off with C sharp diminished again, we'll need to raise the note on the D string to get either a C sharp or D flat minor 6 in root position. To get a minor 6 in first inversion, we'll need to push the note on the B string up by a half step. And that gives us a B flat minor 6. Then, if we raise the A string up by a half step, we get a G minor 6 in second inversion. And finally, we can raise the G string up, and that'll give us an E minor 6 in third inversion. This concept has seriously far-reaching possibilities for harmonic movement that we'll continue to explore in future lessons. For now, what I want you to get out of this is that when we're playing these substitutions, we're really combining chords from two different families and using the diminished that connects them to make things sound even smoother. Here's another example using those same substitutions where we'll resolve up to the tonic chord instead of down. I think this stuff sounds super pretty already, and all we're doing is playing block chords with hardly any rhythmic variation at all. Of course, if you've spent any time studying Barry's concepts, you'll know that he's all about playing movement and not static chords. Here's a simple way that we can use parallel motion by running up or down the C6 diminished scale over F major 7 to connect a bigger leap between voicings. All these moves are being done with just drop 2 chord shapes, but we can accomplish the same movements with other members of the drop voicing system. In the PDF for today's lesson, I've written out all of these voice leading ideas for you in drop 3 chords as well. Up next, we'll take a look at using some of these same ideas over a 2-5-1-6 progression that comes up a ton in jazz standards. Before we get to that though, I need to give a quick shout out to TrueFire.com for supporting the channel. TrueFire is an online lesson library that's host to literally thousands of courses on a wide range of musical topics from some really amazing artists and educators, including yours truly. If you're interested in improving your comping, make sure to check out my course, Exploring Melodic Jazz Comping, available on TrueFire now. In this course, I'll demonstrate and break down 17 essential comping approaches using TrueFire's interactive learning tools. We'll work on crafting more sophisticated comping parts using drop 2 voicing, chord substitutions, approach chords, diminished concepts, and voice leading. We'll also dive into triadic approaches, partial chords, using scales as chords, and the art of borrowing notes and dominants. You'll learn how these melodic comping approaches can be artistically applied using backing tracks based on the changes to popular jazz standards like Autumn Leaves, There'll Never Be Another You, and All the Things You Are. The link to the course is in the description of this video. Now let's get back to the lesson and see how we can use more of the diminished family relationships for some extra crunch in our accompaniments over a longer progression. In the last section, we used the diminished that connects G minor 6 and C6 to create some tension on the way back to our tonic chord, but that's not the only member of the family we can use to do this. If we want even more crunch from our dominant chord, a really common way to get it is to use what Barry called the tritones minor. Let me show you what that means real quick. In this case, our dominant is a C7, and that comes from the C-sharp diminished family. The tritone substitution of a C7 is a G-flat or F-sharp 7, which is also in the same family of chords. From there, we can use what Barry called the important minor, which is the minor 6 on the 5 from our new tritone substituted dominant chord, and we'll play that over the original dominant for tons of juicy tension. Since our tritone sub here is G-flat, then the important minor would be a D-flat minor 6. And wouldn't you know it, that's in the family of C-sharp diminished as well. Let's see how it sounds when we put this into the same short 2-5 progression that we went through earlier. This time, we'll still play B-flat 6 in place of G minor, but when we go down a family to the dominant, we'll play the tritones minor of D-flat minor 6 for some added tension and then resolve to the tonic with C6. Here's how that sounds. Remember, we're really just scratching the surface and using the concepts from the family of chords to generate substitutions so we can practice voice leading between chords. In today's PDF, I've also written these examples out in drop 2 across the rest of the string sets and given you some examples for how to work this out using drop 3 chords as well. To wrap things up for today, let's go through one last example and see how we can stretch this out a bit over a 4-bar progression. This time, we'll play these substitutions over a 2-5-1-6 in the key of F. Over G minor, we'll keep on using B flat 6, but over the C7, we'll use both G minor 6 and the tritones minor to create some motion. Then we'll resolve to C6 for F major 7, and for our 6th chord, which is really a 5 of the 2, we'll play its tritones minor, which will be E flat minor 6. Here's how that sounds. Thanks so much for sticking around all the way to the end of the video. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of the lesson. Voice leading is a super important concept, whether we're playing a solo or accompaniment, and as guitar players, we tend to get locked into thinking about things in grips or shapes, which can make it difficult to see how everything really fits together. Personally, once I really started working with Barry's harmonic system, it was a real light bulb moment for my ability to play with smooth voice leading. As always, if you did find today's lesson helpful, make sure you give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications too. If you want to access the PDF for today's lesson, you can grab that, along with the whole back catalog for all the videos on the channel, for as little as $10 a month over at my Patreon page, or by just hitting the join button right here on YouTube. A special thanks goes out to Ron Maestas, Alf Collins, Juan Doming, Ruthenio Fiuza, and Carlos Fernandez for being studio fans. I really appreciate the support. An extra special thanks is due to these studio members for their support as well. James O'Connor, S. Bruce 1234, Thomas Clecciafore, Martin Weigers, Robert Muldowney, Mark Eslick, Carol, Robert Allaire, Daniel Alvarenga, Robert Cody, Robert Berlin, Amo Rainey, Lambert, Gregory Chu, Vaughn Davis, Nick Hess, Louis Maiden, Brendan Kelly, T. Colston, Andrew McBride, Aldo Fonseca, Jason Paul Dubois, Ron Askew, Lawrence Beer, Raymond Agloro, James Seabury, Bruce Wood, Bill Benfield, Benjamin Dockstader, Sean Lepore, Stephen White, Salkai Zoltan, Apollos Joliver, Justin Fisher, Milanda Kaiser, David Wertman, Zay Suarez, Artie Sanchez, Louis Rosen, Stephen Prager, Aaron Walters, Sgemster, Everton Armstrong, Stephen Schwartz, Max Irwin, Patrick Aron, David Zuckerbraun, and PH. An extra special shout out to Jazz Luminaire patron Bill Jacob. Thank you guys all so much for your continued support. I'm David Shore, and thanks again for hanging with me at the studio today. I'll see you guys next time.